We like to romanticize the Middle Ages. We think of knights, castles, and lavish royal banquets. But the reality? If you were transported back to the year 1300 and forced to eat lunch, you wouldn't be looking for a menu. You'd be praying for a doctor. From bread bulked out with sawdust to meat refreshed with spices just to hide the smell of decay, this isn't history class. This is the truth about why medieval food was, by every modern standard, absolutely disgusting. And today, we're finding out why. Bread was the foundation of the medieval world. But there was a dark side to the bakery. When harvests failed, and they failed constantly, bakers faced an impossible choice: go broke or get creative. They started extending the dough. They'd mix in chalk to make it look whiter, sawdust to add bulk, or ground up beans to save money. This wasn't just poor quality, it was dangerous. It was so bad that cities had to pass the assize of bread and ale to catch these guys. They would literally lock bakers in the public pillory for selling light or tampered loaves. You weren't just buying food, you were rolling the dice on whether your dinner was 20% wood. In a world without refrigeration, meat was a ticking time bomb. If you were a peasant, your diet consisted of salt-cured or dried meat that had been sitting in a damp cellar for months. But what about the rich? This is where the myth meets the ugly truth. People often say spices were used to mask the taste of rotting meat. While historians argue over how common this was, one thing is certain: spices like cinnamon, cloves, and ginger were the ultimate status symbols. If you were a noble and your fish was starting to turn, you didn't throw it out, you drowned it in expensive, imported spices. You were literally paying a fortune to pretend your dinner wasn't hazardous. If you weren't eating bread, you were eating pottage. It was the ultimate medieval comfort food, a thick, endless stew of whatever was available. Vegetables, beans, and occasionally a scrap of fat. But here's the kicker: they had no concept of germ theory. Water sources were often contaminated, and cooking utensils were rarely cleaned. Everything was boiled until it was a thick, mushy sludge because they believed raw vegetables were indigestible and even dangerous. Your dinner was essentially a mystery meat baby food that had been simmering for 3 days straight. Was it all bad? If you were royalty, you had the finest ingredients. But for 95% of the population, eating wasn't about pleasure, it was about pure survival. It was about getting enough calories to wake up and work the fields the next day, regardless of whether that bread was half chalk or that meat was a little past its prime. The next time you complain about a slightly cold pizza, remember, at least it didn't come out of a year-old barrel and get seasoned with a prayer that it wouldn't kill you.